Heya Cryptozens, it's 10 p.m. Pacific time. My name is Nikodemus, and welcome back to the Crypto Overnighter, where we take a nightly look at the crypto, NFT, and metaverse space. And keep in mind, nothing in this show should ever be considered financial advice. And it's 10 p.m. on a Wednesday, December 14th, 2022. And today was the second day of congressional hearings on the collapse of FTX. Yesterday saw House Financial Services Committee hear testimony from their lone witness, John J. Ray III. Well, today it was the Senate Banking Committee's turn. But first, if you're worried about what kind of day Sam is having, let's talk about that. Because Sam isn't going home for Christmas or Hanukkah or New Year's, maybe even Valentine's Day. Sam may spend up to 2 months in Fox Hill Prison in the Bahamas. Now, this prison is known for physical abuse against prisoners as well as harsh conditions. SBF was remanded to the medical wing of the prison after a court hearing. He had been taking medication prior to his arrest, but it was not clear where he will be serving his time. Now, according to a report from the U.S. State Department, conditions at Fox Hill Prison are harsh. The report says that the facility is overcrowded, that the prisoners have poor nutrition, and that there's inadequate sanitation and medical care. This report also includes cases of physical abuse by correctional officers. The maximum security cells for men are very small and hold up to 6 people without mattresses or toilet facilities. Inmates must remove waste by bucket. Many inmates complain about the lack of beds and bedding, and some develop bed sores from lying on the ground. The cells are infested with rats, maggots, and insects. Fox Hill is the only prison in the Bahamas, so this isn't theory, it's not guesswork where Sam is going to be held. The Carmichael Road Detention Center is intended for short stays. The commissioner of the Correctional Services said that most of the facilities have been renovated and they don't have problems with rats. How reassuring. Sam will probably stay in custody in the Bahamas until February, until extradition proceedings have taken place. He faces charges from the Justice Department, the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, and the Securities Exchange Commission for defrauding investors and lenders. Many people in the crypto community wanted him to be arrested after the liquidity crisis and the bankruptcy of FTX. He's made many apologies on media outlets before he was arrested. Now, some people believe that he's going to try to bribe his way out of prison. However, if he's returned to the U.S. and found guilty on all charges, he could face a 115-year sentence. Now, keep in mind, Sam is intending to fight extradition. He's fighting to stay in the Bahamian prison with the bed sores and the rats. What could convince a 30-year-old vegan to stay in those conditions? I mean, the U.S. prison system isn't great, but I'd rather be in the U.S. and behind bars in Club Fed, or possibly even out on bail. I'd rather be extradited than in Fox Hill. But like I was saying, it was the Senate Banking Committee's turn to meet on FTX, and meet they did. And frankly, I think some people are taking advantage of this situation to pursue their own personal agenda. Here's what I mean. Senators Warren and Marshall introduced a bill that they claimed would regulate digital assets and prevent money laundering. This bill would expand the definition of money service businesses, prohibit financial institutions from using technology like digital asset mixers, and regulate digital asset kiosks. Now, this announcement was made during the Senate Banking Committee's hearing discussing the recent events involving FTX. No friend to crypto, Warren said, quote, Senator Marshall and I introduced a bipartisan bill today that requires crypto to follow the same money laundering rules as every bank, every broker, and Western Union all have to follow today. But, Senators, I'd like to bring up an important point. These are not banks. They're not brokers. They're not Western Union. And frankly, your ignorance of the issue is going to do damage. It's going to hurt more than help, because this is going to affect a wide variety of businesses when it really shouldn't. Businesses that we're going to need. Now, this legislation would expand the definition of a money service business to include unhosted wallet providers, cryptocurrency miners, validators, and other nodes that validate or secure third-party transactions. These businesses would be required to have written anti-money laundering policies and implement them. The bill would also require reporting of transactions over $10,000 as well as imposing other new reporting requirements. Now, previously, unhosted wallets, miners, and validators were not considered money service businesses, and they really should not be. Now, this bill would require any money service business to have written anti-money laundering procedures and then implement them. It would also finalize reporting requirements already proposed by FinCEN and impose new requirements, including reporting transactions over $10,000. This bill instructs the Treasury Department to create a rule banning financial institutions from interacting with, quote, digital asset miners, privacy coins, and other anonymity-enhancing technologies. It also requires the Treasury Department, the SEC, the CFTC to set up review processes for the entities that they regulate. And finally, this bill would create reporting requirements for digital asset kiosk owners for FinCEN and the DEA. Now, Patrick Daugherty is the head of Foley and Lardner's digital asset practice, and he's the adjunct professor of digital assets at Cornell Law School. Now, he praised the bipartisan effort, but he expressed concern about the loss of financial privacy for non-criminal digital asset buyers and sellers. And Casey Jenkins, he's a former Consumer Financial Protection Bureau staffer, and he said that this bill could have significant implications for money service businesses. The prohibition on financial institutions interacting with digital mixers would effectively ban mixers and privacy coins. The requirement that miners and validators do due diligence would be problematic, as they are not equipped for this function and do not have the staffing of banks or brokers. Now, Jenkins said that the bill appeared to have been, quote, thrown together at the last minute, and I'm sure that it was. As soon as this business with FTX came down, I'm sure they got a bunch of crypto haters in a room and threw this thing together. And it was supposed to set the tone for further discussion in Congress. It is unlikely to be considered during this session. Warren has also promised to write comprehensive crypto regulation legislation that would reportedly favor the SEC in the role of regulator. Now, the hearing today did feature both supporters and opponents of cryptocurrency. Now, this is unlike a previous hearing on the same topic. In this case, the Senate hearing included a mix of perspectives from different industries. During a Senate hearing on the collapse, Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey compared cryptocurrencies to software, arguing that a ban on digital assets would not solve the problems that led to the exchange's financial issues. He and other speakers, including Jennifer Schlupp from the Cato Institute and investor Kevin O'Leary, suggested that the problem was not with crypto itself, but with the unregulated companies that handled user assets. And we're going to get to Mr. O'Leary here in a minute. Anyway, Toomey argued that banning crypto would be like banning mortgages after the 2008 financial crisis. He said, quote, some of my colleagues have suggested somehow pausing cryptocurrency before we pass legislation. This is a profoundly misguided, not to mention impossible idea. Short of enacting draconian authority policies, cryptocurrency cannot be stopped. Various lawmakers proposed legislation to regulate different parts of the crypto space. Senator Toomey suggested starting with stablecoins, while Senator Warren discussed the potential for cryptocurrencies to be used for terrorism and ransomware payments. None of the proposed legislation appeared to be directly related to the events at FTX. Now, we've heard Mr. Wonderful defend Sam Bankman-Fried in the past. This has not changed. In fact, just today, Kevin O'Leary claimed that Binance was responsible for the collapse of FTX. Now, keep in mind, O'Leary was a paid spokesperson for FTX. He provided details about his conversations with Sam. O'Leary said that he asked SBF about how customer funds were used and was told almost $3 billion were used to repurchase shares owned by Binance. When asked why FTX failed, O'Leary said that he didn't have the records, but he believes the heads of Binance and FTX were at war. O'Leary claimed that regulation was the root of the conflict between the heads of FTX and Binance. He said Binance, CZ, they were required to follow regulatory requests and compliance standards in various jurisdictions as shareholders with nearly 20% of FTX. He said, quote, apparently, according to Sam Bankman-Fried, CZ would not comply with regulators' requests in different jurisdictions to provide the data that would clear them, FTX, for a license. The only option the management and SBF had was to buy him out at an extraordinary valuation close to $32 billion. O'Leary said that the share purchases damaged FTX's balance sheet. He also claimed that CZ's decision to liquidate Binance's position on FTX token was intended to push down the token's price. CZ cited, quote, recent revelations and post-exit risk management as the reasons for liquidation. Quote, in my personal view, these two, in an unregulated market, with this incredible business in terms of growth, were at war with each other, and one put the other out of business intentionally. Now, maybe there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe there's nothing wrong with love and war, but Binance is massive, unregulated global monopoly now, and they put FTX out of business. O'Leary also spoke in favor of a crypto network during his speech. Quote, this nascent industry is culling its herd. Gone or going are the inexperienced or incompetent managers, weak business models, and rogue unregulated operators. Hopefully, these highly publicized events will put renewed focus on implementing domestic regulation that has been stalled for years. Other jurisdictions have already implemented such policies and are now attracting both investment capital and highly skilled talent. In the United States, we are falling behind and losing our leadership position. As a paid spokesperson, O'Leary got $15 million for endorsing FTX. That said, he lost $10 million in crypto held at FTX during the collapse. Now, it wasn't just the American government talking about SBF and the crash of FTX. The Aussies are paying attention, and they're tightening security. The Australian Treasury has announced that the government will create a framework for the regulation of cryptocurrency service providers in 2023. This is part of a plan to update the country's financial system. The decision follows the collapse of FTX, which required the management of its Australian entities to give control to licensed insolvency practitioners. The Australian government plans to create custody and licensing settings to protect consumers. The announcement stated that the previous government did not adequately respond to market changes. It added that previous government made announcements but did not follow through on them. The Australian government will determine which tokens should be regulated by financial services as part of its ongoing token mapping work. This framework for the regulation of cryptocurrency service providers will be included in the country's payments system, which will be released in 2023. The consultancy paper invites feedback until February 2023 and covers various aspects of the cryptocurrency ecosystem. The Australian government will also explore the policy reasons for a central bank digital currency and investigate the economic, legal, regulatory, and technological considerations associated with it. Australia's central bank is expected to finish its CDBC pilot by mid-2023. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, released a policy paper entitled Lessons from Crypto Winter, DeFi versus CeFi, with CeFi being centralized finance to DeFi's centralized finance. This paper analyzes the impact of the crypto winter on retail investors, as well as the role of financial engineering in the industry's problems. The paper focuses on events in the first 3 quarters of 2022 and blames the lack of safeguards on non-compliant provision of regulated financial activity and activities that may fall outside of existing regulatory frameworks. The report highlights that institutional market participants exited their positions sooner than retail investors, who may have even continued to invest as the market collapsed. Remember all the people saying, buy the dip? Well, there you go. It also notes that some investors had little understanding of the assets they were investing in. Further, contagion ran rampant through the industry due to its high interconnectivity. The crypto winter also revealed new forms of financial engineering that had a negative effect on the market. According to the report, quote, developments such as liquid staking, creating derivatives backed by illiquid locked assets, create extreme liquidity transformation risk and maturity mismatches. Consecutive rounds of rehypothecation of crypto assets that are considered by platform clients to be lent and or locked as collateral create risks related to high leverage and liquidity mismatches in crypto asset markets. The report notes that many of the negative practices in the crypto industry are as a result of the composability of DeFi. the ability to combine smart contracts to create new products. These practices continue despite the negative effects that they've had. This report also discusses the divide between CeFi and DeFi, noting that decentralized finance worked without issues in the first half of the year, but that its automated liquidations could lead to greater market volatility. Both CeFi and DeFi may lack regulation or regulatory compliance and are highly interconnected in a connected ecosystem. The report documents an Oracle failure in the Terra ecosystem that created opportunities for abuse on some exchanges. They found that differences in information access led to DeFi and CeFi platforms behaving differently during the crisis. It also notes that CeFi and DeFi markets work better in bull markets. The report emphasizes the need for educated retail investors and calls for policymakers to provide warnings to investors about the increased risks of such activities. It also notes that as the industry develops, crypto market crises will have greater potential to spill over into traditional markets, and international coordination will be necessary to avoid regulatory arbitrage opportunities currently exploited by non-compliant firms. And that's going to do it for us tonight. I want to thank you, my listeners, because when you stop listening, I will stop talking. We'll see you tomorrow night.